In the grand theater of global politics, are we merely spectators to a predetermined script, or can the actions of a few nations truly rewrite the future for everyone? For decades, the complex relationship between the United States, Israel, and Iran has been a simmering cauldron of ambition, ideology, and strategic calculation. But in 2024, the dynamics have shifted. This is no longer just a regional power struggle. It's a global economic and political chess match where every move sends ripples across continents. From the price of oil in Europe to the flow of technology in Asia, the consequences of this standoff are felt in households worldwide. This is the story of a shadow war fought not only with drones and intelligence but with sanctions, currency manipulation, and diplomatic gambits. It's an analysis of how three nations' visions for their future are shaping the world's present, forcing every other country to choose a side, adapt, or face the consequences of a new world order forged in tension and rivalry. To understand the chasm that divides Washington and Tehran, we must journey back through time, to an era when these capitals were allies. The year is 1953. A CIA-orchestrated coup overthrows Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, reinstalling the Shah to his peacock throne. This single act planted a seed of deep-seated resentment, a grievance that would fester for decades. For a quarter century, the Shah's regime, a pillar of American policy in the Middle East, ruled with an iron fist. But beneath the surface of modernization and oil wealth, revolutionary fervor was brewing. In 1979, the volcano erupted. The Shah fled, and Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini returned from exile to establish the Islamic Republic. The seizure of the U.S. Embassy and the 444-day hostage crisis that followed shattered the old alliance, transforming a strategic partnership into an enduring enmity. The echoes of these events still reverberate today, shaping the psyche of both nations and defining the contours of a conflict that seems intractable. The revolution was not just a change in government, it was a fundamental reordering of power and identity, setting Iran on a collision course with its former patron and its key regional ally. Forged in the crucible of shared values and mutual strategic imperatives, the bond between the United States and Israel stands as one of the most resilient alliances of the modern era. It is a partnership built not just on diplomacy, but on steel and stars, the unwavering provision of advanced American military hardware and intelligence. From the early guarantees of Israel's qualitative military edge to the joint development of sophisticated defense systems like the Iron Dome and Arrow missile defense programs, Washington has ensured its ally remains the region's preeminent military power. This relationship transcends mere arms sales. It is a deep, symbiotic connection involving joint military exercises, intelligence sharing that operates in real time, and a unified diplomatic front against perceived threats. At the heart of this alliance in the 21st century is a shared assessment of Iran as the primary destabilizing force in the Middle East. For both Washington and Jerusalem, Tehran's regional ambitions and its nuclear program represent an existential challenge that must be contained. This shared worldview makes their strategic coordination almost seamless, a powerful force multiplier that shapes the geopolitical landscape from the Levant to the Persian Gulf, creating a formidable bloc against Iranian influence. From the ashes of the Iran-Iraq War, a new Persian strategy emerged, one rooted in patience, asymmetry, and a profound sense of historical purpose. Tehran's leadership, viewing the region as a grand chessboard, embarked on a quest for hegemony, not through direct conquest, but through the careful cultivation of influence. The goal, to establish a Shia crescent, an arc of friendly states and proxy forces stretching from the Mediterranean to the Arabian Sea, creating strategic depth and challenging its adversaries. This doctrine of forward defense means fighting its battles far from its own borders. In Lebanon, Hezbollah evolved from a local militia into a powerful political and military force, a state within a state serving as Iran's spearhead against Israel. In Iraq, a network of militias provides Tehran with significant leverage. In Yemen, the support for the Houthi movement allows Iran to project power into the strategic Bab el-Mandeb Strait, threatening global shipping lanes. This network of partners and proxies gives Iran a powerful, deniable capability to shape regional events, bleed its rivals in protracted conflicts, and counter the immense conventional military superiority of the United States and its allies. It is a long game, a patient resurgence aimed at restoring Iran to what it sees as its rightful place as a dominant regional power. In the 21st century standoff, the most potent weapons are not always missiles and tanks. For the United States, the ultimate tool of coercion against Iran has been its dominance of the global financial system. A complex web of sanctions, meticulously designed and ruthlessly enforced, forms an economic arsenal aimed at crippling the Iranian state. This campaign of maximum pressure targets the lifelines of the Iranian economy, its oil exports, its access to international banking through systems like SWIFT, and the financial networks of its powerful Revolutionary Guard Corps. The objective is to starve the regime of the resources it needs to fund its nuclear program and its regional proxies. The impact is profound, creating immense hardship for ordinary Iranians and forcing the government to operate a resistance economy based on smuggling and clandestine trade. But this economic warfare has global repercussions. It creates volatility in global energy markets, forcing nations like China, India, and European allies to make difficult choices between their economic needs and their relationship with Washington. The sanctions are a modern-day siege, a relentless and invisible pressure designed to bring a nation to its knees without firing a single shot, turning global commerce itself into a battlefield. The conflict has moved from the physical world into the digital and unmanned realms, a shadowy technological battlefield where attribution is difficult and the rules of engagement are unwritten. The first major salvo was fired in cyberspace. The Stuxnet computer worm, a sophisticated piece of malware widely attributed to a joint US-Israeli effort, infiltrated and physically damaged Iran's nuclear centrifuges at Natanz. It was a watershed moment, proving that lines of code could be as destructive as a conventional airstrike. In response, Iran has accelerated its own capabilities, not only in cyber defense and offense, but also in another asymmetric domain, drone warfare. It has developed and proliferated a vast and increasingly sophisticated arsenal of unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs. These drones, supplied to its proxies across the Middle East, have changed the face of modern conflict. From the oil fields of Saudi Arabia to the waters of the Gulf, these low-cost, high-impact weapons allow Iran and its allies to strike with precision and deniability. This new technological arms race, fought with algorithms and remote-controlled systems, represents the future of this enduring struggle, a quieter, more insidious form of warfare where the front line is everywhere and nowhere at once. The grand chessboard of the Middle East is not played by kings and queens alone, but by a sprawling network of knights and pawns. This is the realm of the proxy war, a shadow conflict where nations project power without declaring open war. For Iran, this strategy is a pillar of its foreign policy, an asymmetric response to its conventional military and economic disadvantages. From the sophisticated arsenal of Hezbollah in Lebanon, poised on Israel's northern border, to the determined Houthi forces in Yemen controlling the strategic Bab el-Mandeb Strait, Iran's influence extends through a carefully cultivated axis of resistance. In Iraq and Syria, a constellation of militias operates, furthering Tehran's objectives and challenging American presence. On the other side of the board, the United States and Israel rely on a different set of alliances. The Abraham Accords represented a historic realignment, bringing nations like the UAE and Bahrain into a closer security partnership with Israel, driven by a shared perception of the Iranian challenge. Saudi Arabia, a regional heavyweight, engages in its own complex dance, balancing its long-standing rivalry with Iran against the pragmatic need for regional stability. In this labyrinthine conflict, the lines are blurred. Allies become rivals, and pawns can become powerful players. The true cost is paid not in the halls of power, but in the streets of Beirut, Sana'a, and Baghdad, where the grand strategies of distant capitals manifest as daily realities for millions caught in the crossfire of a war fought by others. Beyond the immediate theater of conflict, the tremors of the US-Israel-Iran standoff radiate across the globe, striking at the very arteries of the world economy. The Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway through which a fifth of the world's oil supply passes, is a constant flashpoint. A single incident here, A miscalculation or a deliberate act of disruption can send shockwaves through global energy markets. Oil prices surge on the mere whisper of heightened tensions, a geopolitical premium that is ultimately paid by consumers at the gas pump and in their heating bills from Tokyo to Toronto. But it's not just about oil. The Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait are critical for commercial shipping, a highway for container ships carrying everything from electronics to clothing between Asia and Europe. Attacks on this route force shipping companies to make an expensive choice: risk the passage or undertake the long and costly detour around Africa's Cape of Good Hope. This adds weeks to delivery times and billions to shipping costs, fueling inflation and disrupting just-in-time supply chains. For multinational corporations, the instability creates a fog of uncertainty, making long-term investment in the region a high-stakes gamble. The economic fallout is a weapon in itself, a tool of pressure that can destabilize governments, sway public opinion, and alter the strategic calculus of nations thousands of miles away from the epicenter. The globalized world has created a system where a spark in the Persian Gulf can start a fire in the global marketplace. While tensions simmer on the ground and at sea, another, quieter battle is waged in the hushed corridors of power and behind the closed doors of international diplomacy. This is a world of calculated ambiguity, of public pronouncements intended for domestic consumption and secret back channels where the real negotiations unfold. At the United Nations in New York, Security Council sessions become a stage for public posturing, with ambassadors delivering impassioned speeches that are carefully scripted to signal resolve to allies and defiance to adversaries. In European capitals like Vienna and Geneva, seasoned diplomats engage in a delicate dance, attempting to mediate and find off-ramps from the path of escalation. These are the arenas where third-party powers, like China and Russia, play their own intricate games. China, with its vast economic interests in regional stability for its Belt and Road Initiative, often calls for restraint and dialogue. Russia, meanwhile, may see an opportunity to exploit the West's distraction, strengthening its own position in the region. The language of diplomacy is its own art form. A statement expressing deep concern is worlds away from one condemning an action. Every word is weighed, every comma debated. The ultimate prize is influence, the ability to shape the narrative and guide the outcome without firing a single shot. But it's a high-wire act where a single diplomatic misstep, a leaked memo, or a misinterpreted signal could unravel years of painstaking work and inadvertently open the door to the very conflict everyone claims they want to avoid. The year 2024 arrives not just as another turn of the calendar, but as a potential convergence of multiple high-stakes timelines, creating a period of maximum vulnerability and opportunity. In the United States, a presidential election year introduces a powerful element of political calculus. An incumbent administration may feel pressure to appear strong and decisive, while challengers may criticize any perceived weakness, narrowing the options for careful, long-term diplomacy. Every foreign policy move is scrutinized through a domestic political lens. Simultaneously, Iran faces its own internal pressures. Its leadership, navigating a complex domestic landscape and an economy strained by sanctions, continues to advance its nuclear program. Each new centrifuge that spins, each percentage point of uranium enrichment, shortens the breakout time, the hypothetical period needed to produce material for a nuclear device. This ticking clock intensifies the existential security concerns in Israel. Israeli leadership, guided by a doctrine of preemption and a vow to never allow Iran to acquire nuclear capability, watches the calendar with growing impatience. Their strategic calculus involves a stark question: is the risk of a preventative military strike greater than the risk of a nuclear-armed Iran? These three clocks, the American political clock, the Iranian nuclear clock, and the Israeli strategic clock, are all ticking at different speeds, yet they are all set to intersect in 2024. The year becomes a crucible, a moment where long simmering tensions could either be masterfully diffused or catastrophically ignited. As the world holds its breath, the future of the Middle East hinges on a critical choice between two divergent pathways. The first is the arduous road to de-escalation. This path is not paved with grand speeches, but with painstaking incremental steps. It could involve a revitalized and expanded diplomatic framework, a JCPOA 2.0, that addresses not only nuclear concerns, but also regional security and ballistic missile programs. It would require creative economic incentives, offering Iran a tangible route to reintegration into the global economy in exchange for verifiable concessions. It demands the establishment of robust communication channels to prevent accidental escalation, a hotline for a region perpetually on edge. This is the path of compromise, of recognizing the legitimate security concerns of all sides and building a future based on shared interests rather than perpetual antagonism. The alternative path is far clearer and far more perilous: the road to confrontation. This journey begins not with a single dramatic event, but with a series of escalating reprisals. A proxy attack is met with a direct military response. A cyber attack on critical infrastructure is answered in kind. A misidentified drone leads to a naval clash in the Persian Gulf. Each step up the ladder of escalation makes it harder to climb back down, as national honor and political pressures demand an ever stronger response. This path leads to a devastating regional war with incalculable human and economic costs, potentially drawing in global powers. The future is unwritten. The choice between these two roads will be made not by fate, but by the decisions of leaders in Washington, Tehran, and Jerusalem.